There we go. Okay, thank you very much for joining me. This is lesson 15, and today we are covering Unit 11, Narrative Writing. This unit covers lesson 11.1 in your CloudPort information, what is narrative writing, lesson 11.2, characters, lesson 11.3, plot, and lesson 11.4, setting. So what is narrative writing? Narrative writing predominantly tells a story. If description attempts to evoke a marvelous image in the reader's mind, then narrative writing draws the reader in by telling a gripping and entertaining story. Like an essay or a newspaper article, a narrative has a structure. It is structured through the series of events that the characters encounter and react to, which is also called a plot. The narrative is essentially the path in which the writing takes you through the piece. So a plot can be described as the journey or quest that the characters will set out to complete. This journey could be a literal journey in which the character or characters travel to defeat a monster that is threatening their homeland, such as Lord of the Rings, or it could be a figurative or a spiritual journey in which a character changes his or her perspective after a series of events. This is common in rags to riches plots like Aladdin or rebirth plots like The Beauty and the Beast. Narrative writing can therefore be fictional, which is a story that describes imaginary events and people, or non-fictional, which is a story that describes real events. Fictional stories are popular in novels, short stories, prose poems, plays, and comics. Autobiographies and biographies can also be described as narrative non-fiction because they tell a story of somebody's life. Although the common traits of descriptive fiction are essential for storytelling, characters, plot, and setting are the fundamental aspects of narrative fiction. So characters. Every great narrative has compelling characters. One way to add depth to a character's personality is by using characterization. As we have previously discussed in previous sessions, characterization is how characters are constructed during a plot. This can be achieved both directly or indirectly through speech, thought, effect on others, appearance, and actions. All of those combined give us more information about a character, give them depth. If every story has a protagonist, and the protagonist is a lead character who we follow for most of the plot, protagonists are usually the main character. So Harry Potter would be the protagonist. In Lord of the Rings, it would be a guy called Frodo, is that right? See the main character, you know who I'm talking about. Pride and Prejudice would be Elizabeth. She would be the protagonist. She would be the main character. We follow them through the story. So commonly, different aspects of the character are used to reflect a particular moral or idea. A protagonist might represent morals such as courage, equality, and love. Therefore, the author would use characterization to convey this character as courageous, fair, and loving. This could be achieved by showing him or her helping others less fortunate than themselves. In some stories, for example, in children's stories like Cinderella, we find that good protagonists are characterized as beautiful and elegant, whereas the antagonist, this is the person who opposes the protagonist, is depicted as ugly. This ugliness is shown to match their personality, which is greedy, wicked, and cruel. In other stories, however, this is not always the case. In Lord of the Rings, for example, the main protagonists, that is, the hobbits, do not represent a typical idea of beauty, being only a few feet tall, with tough, hairy feet and excessive appetites. What is interesting about this tale is that it's often the people that look ordinary and uninteresting that turn out to be the heroes through their intelligence. Therefore, in many compelling stories, we find that characters surprise the audience by failing to conform to the usual conventions and stereotypes that have been used before. So you did find in stories of past that the good characters would be beautiful and the evil characters would be ugly, and that's become so used that it's kind of a cliche now. So you might find now that when books are starting to be written that it might be a surprising character. So it might be the ugly character who's a good one, or the evil character might be beautiful. That's starting to come through again now, isn't it? So trends take place as well. But usually we might see in stories that a good character is described kindly. So what is key in any successful story is that the characters are described in a lot of detail so that their personalities are clear and understandable to the audience. It is therefore important that you use various forms of characterization so that your character's actions and reactions to different situations seem credible and authentic for the audience. For example, it would be really odd for an audience if an antagonist randomly started being nice to the protagonist for no reason and with no further explanation as to why he or she started doing this. Thus, it is crucial that you show early in your story what your characters are like through characterization, so that events later in the story seem logical to the audience. So can you give me some examples of your own here? Feel free to shout out or write down in the chat box. Can you give me some examples of characters who are either good or bad, who have reasons, background stories, or reasons that happen in the plot, which make their goodness or their evilness seem credible to the reader? Who comes to mind first for you?
Were you saying that they look like the Lord of the Rings, you mean?
So Lord of the Rings is kind of the opposing idea, isn't it? So if you look at Cinderella, you know, Cinderella is good and she's beautiful.
What do you mean, beautiful and a hero, or do you mean?
It used to be, yeah, very much that the beautiful heroes, that the heroes were really beautiful and that the baddies were really ugly. So Disney is an absolute typical example of that. But the Lord of the Rings completely throws that upside down. For them, their heroes are the really...
Because I was just trying to understand what the question you said. That was all.
So what it means really is that sometimes it can be a usual trope that you're going to expect. You're going to expect the good person to be beautiful. You're going to expect the bad person to be ugly. Sometimes it throws it on its head and it's a surprise, which is a nice twist, isn't it? You know, it's nice when the goodie can be ugly for a change, or the baddie can be beautiful for a change, you know. So sometimes it's not always set in stone. You can throw it on its head if you choose to. But can you think of any examples of a character who was good or bad in a book that had a reason for their goodness or badness? So what baddies can you think of? I think Marvel's a really good example of this, isn't it? With baddies that have a reason for being bad.
I've got one that I remember seeing, Megamind.
Yes, I love Megamind. Well done, Casper.
It was like the beginning of Superman, the good one and the bad one.
Yeah.
Where the good one just faked his death.
Yeah.
But he was like raised in a prison, thinking he was doing the good stuff.
Yes.
And then that happened. He wanted to make a super villain, and then he turned into the hero.
Yes, that's exactly right, isn't it? Yeah, the goodie becomes the baddie becomes the hero in that film. But they have like a similar upbringing, and the baddie's always kind of told he's bad and always put down, isn't it? So it's kind of like a villain building story, that, and then the twist at the end. Well done, Casper, that one's brilliant. But again, in that one then, interesting. Which one's the good looking one?
Of course, the first hero.
The first hero was very good looking and very strong. I'm a superhero, and the other one was kind of like pushed aside because he was a bit weird looking, wasn't he? Yeah, so that started out really typically. Venom, Rodri said. You're going to have to explain Venom to me. Not very good at that one.
He's an anti-hero, isn't he?
Okay,
so,
okay.
I mean, in the real comics, it started off that he went on to Peter Parker Spider-Man.
So Venom was the baddie, was he?
And then, yeah, well, he was like a symbiote. It goes onto the person, and what happens is they get super ability. So Spider-Man powers were enhanced, but then he realised that basically it was affecting his head, and you know, Venom almost tried to take over. And then what happens is he takes Venom off, and then he goes on to someone else, the symbiote.
Yeah.
And he starts off bad, but then he becomes an anti-hero. And what basically they start what you calling it, should I say, becomes an anti-hero. Then what he starts doing then is they obviously just put it this way, he'll kill the baddies. Spider-Man would obviously want the you know, the bad people to go into prison or something like that.
Not to kill
he wouldn't
them,
want to kill them.
Yeah.
But Venom, what he would do is he would bite the heads off of the baddies.
Okay, so he's a baddie killing a baddie.
Well, No, he's a
Tabitha's
bad,
nodding.
yeah, baddie killing a baddie, basically, yeah.
Okay,
And
okay.
it's
Wow.
called an anti-hero. They like to
Yeah,
kill.
so there we go. We've got layers to
They
this.
like to kill the
Tabitha's come up with a
baddies
really useful one.
instead of like Spider-Man, shall I example?
Yeah.
Or Batman, where they want to lock the baddies up.
Yeah.
An anti-hero is someone that would you could start off bad, because stay a little bit bad, but start killing the baddies instead of.
So there's a bit of good and a bit of bad in there. It's a mixed character. I really like that one. It's a really good example, Rodri. Tabitha's just given an excellent example. So I'm not great with Marvel. I'm really not. I apologize, but I do know my Greek myths. Loki. Tell me about Loki then, Tabitha. Tell me about his backstory. Has he got a legitimate reason for being a bad guy? Because I think he does have a legitimate reason for being a bad guy, doesn't he? It's kind of explained. Has he got a brother or something? Who can fill me in on Loki? Who's watched the films?
Loki is the brother of Thor.
That's it, the goodie. So Loki is the brother of the goodie. What happened? This is Megamind again, isn't it, Casper?
Yeah, again.
This is Megamind again.
But because they made Marvel into so many different, the multiverse and everything. Like there was the Disney Plus, there's the Loki series, and where he was arrested by the Time Police and all those Power Stones. I forgot the name of them. He turns from bad to good, and then there's the other Lokis, and then they get trapped in the same thing, and then he's trying to.
But yeah, I think initially in the original myth, they were brothers, weren't they? And one of them was a good and one of them was bad. That's another trait, isn't it? That's another trait of the evil twin or the bad brother or the good brother. And they're very much an archetypal, you're good, you're bad. Although they're both pretty good looking. So yeah, well done everybody. You've really got the gist of that. And I'm really glad you all picked up on the fact that baddies do have more of a backstory explaining why they're evil, because there's
Deadpool.
Yeah.
Deadpool, he's one that kills the baddie.
Yeah, another one that kind of
to
trend is I think that's getting common at the minute, is ones that book the trend, because Daniel said it's boring when they're just bad for the sake of being bad. 100%. And we've kind of got this theory that everybody should be good unless there's a reason to be bad, and that is what baddies do, isn't it? They always give us a reason. This is why I'm bad. I'm not just born bad. No one's just born bad. There's a reason that I'm bad. It could be money, it could be jealousy, it could be because otherwise it's boring, isn't it? We need a reason why they're so bad, and we don't often get a reason why a character's good, because it's kind of expected that you're supposed to be good. Heroes are just heroes. Okay, well done for picking up on that. You're really well done. That was very astute of you. Let me find out where I was now. So, plot. No matter how compelling an author's characters are, without an interesting plot in which they can interact, the story will be a failure. Like characters, plots must be properly assembled and developed so that the story feels authentic for the reader. If a reader is told that the protagonist is in love with the girl next door, and a few sentences later she's told that they live happily ever after, the reader won't find this story interesting or well-rounded. Instead, an author must create conflicts between different participants in the story, so that the audience is invested in the characters and interested in how the story develops and continues. Tabitha said, Green Goblin was brought up by an abusive and alcoholic father. There we go. Baddie story right there. That is a bad background story. That happens an awful lot as well, doesn't it? Even if we're going to stray away from the superheroes and villains, even if we go down the normal route, there's plenty of films with a murderer or a bad guy in them, a realistic bad guy with an abusive childhood. Yeah, there's usually a background story. No one's just kind of evil for the sake of it, are they? Well done, good examples. So back to the conflicts. These conflicts can be between the protagonist and the antagonist. That's the usual one. One person against a good person against a bad person. So in these stories, typically there is a fight between good and evil. Can you think of any examples of plots that have a good character versus an evil character? We've talked a lot about Marvel. They're the obvious ones, superheroes versus villains. Can we think of any books, any examples in literature of a goodie versus a baddie? Really clear cut. Tabitha's shaking her head. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can think of some. So books where there is a really clear-cut good side and a bad side, and the book probably wants you to lean towards the good side. It's probably the goodie that we're talking about. Anybody think of any examples? You can put it in the chat if you're not comfortable speaking out. Please feel free. I've got some examples, so I'll share mine with you if no one can think of any. Good versus evil is the really clear-cut one. We should know this one. So we've got Lord of the Rings, goodies versus baddies. Harry Potter, the very clear-cut one. Harry versus Voldemort and the Death Eaters. And Narnia, I used to love Narnia when I was little. Narnia is this all the goodies versus all the baddies. It's like this big, huge war, lots and lots and lots of things involved in that. Harry Potter Meadow, absolutely well done. Rodri, Turtles, oh my gosh, yeah. Turtles. Are you talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles there, obviously?
Yeah, because when I was a kid, when I was like, that came out when I was about 9, that did the first one. And I've always, the first cartoon, I think is better than the newer cartoons. The very first one.
One from the 90s is so much better.
Yeah, and now,
I was a big Turtles fan.
They're not so good now. They're not
so good. So who's the baddie in the Turtles then? Who can think of the evil in the Turtles? Who's the baddie in that? Who's the villain?
You got Shredder, and you've got Michelangelo, Leonardo, Donatello, and Raphael
and Splinter, Master Splinter. He's a goodie too, isn't he?
And Splinter, yeah.
Yeah, we go.
I could say more about the evil, but there's no point.
That's amazing. So glad we got Turtles in. Right, let's keep going. So plots can also pit the protagonist against nature. So we can have the character versus nature. And in these types of conflicts, the protagonist is often in danger and has to return to safety. What examples of this can we think of in literature, where it's the character versus nature, the world, the wild, the elements? Can we think of any examples of that? Maybe films might be easier on this one. So I'll
there's one I'm trying to think. There's a second. I think the second one's coming out.
Okay. Is it a book or a film?
It's a film. But the blue people, what did they call it now?
Avatar.
Avatar, that's it. Is it Avatar? Yeah,
Avatar. That very but who's the goodie?
That's basically nature in a way, isn't it? What I mean by that
is. Yeah, so the people represent nature as well in that, don't they? The people represent the nature and the trees, and they live in
different. They were different culture and everything, and
Jumanji Meadow
and humans as we do is
definitely
actually
Jumanji Meadow, excellent. Yeah, that is definitely a person versus nature, isn't it? Nature literally, because literal nature is coming out and trying to kill them, and also metaphorically nature, because everything around them, their nature, their habitat, their whole town turns into a jungle. Brilliant example. I haven't even thought of Jumanji. A film for good versus evil is Wednesday. Tabitha, is that the new series? Are you watching that? Good versus evil Wednesday.
There's a new series. I saw that. I don't know if I really want to watch it, but
brilliant. Daniel says Jaws. 100%. That is a person versus nature in another physical sense, isn't it? Nick, Wednesday is good. I haven't watched it yet. I'm going to watch Wednesday. Is she good or is she bad though? Is Wednesday good? Is she good or is she evil? Yes, I love. Okay, another vote for Wednesday. I'm going to have to watch it. We'll have a Wednesday talk next week. Okay. Right, so the examples that I came up with for nature, feel free to keep hitting me with yours. Mine are The Woman in Black. That's the book that we've been referring to for a few weeks now. You know, when we were talking about the house being like a lighthouse and outside being scary and the wind blowing around, that is very much nature outside scary, the light inside good, wasn't it? That's a person versus nature. Robinson Crusoe is a man on a desert island, definitely very much man versus nature. He's stuck on a desert island, doesn't want to be. Man versus nature. And June is another one, like a sci-fi kind of book. I think it might be a film as well, actually, that one. Good, but like you said, isn't very loving. Nick, so that's Wednesday, is it? She is a goodie, but she's not very loving. Yeah,
it's kind of like she's like a good person, but like she looks like
she's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she's definitely a goodie. She's not a nasty person. She's not evil. No. She's really, really weird.
The Addams Family, they're like Halloween, really, aren't they?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that, again, is an interesting one. That flips it on his head, because we assume good people are going to be the blonde, bubbly ones wearing pink, and she's the goth in black. But she is a good character. She is. I like that one. That really turns it on its head. Very, very good example for Wednesday. Okay, what about the next example? The protagonist can also have conflict with the rest of society. So it's the character versus society. In these stories, the protagonist is often fighting against an institution that uses social conventions to stop him or her achieving their goals. So characters versus society, man or woman versus society. Can we think of any of that? Can you think of anywhere the main character is fighting the rest of the world, it seems? Extra points if you can give any book for this one.
Various Marvel films do that, where you've got the good guy, but then you've got the humans. I'm trying to think. In fact, I've just thought of one, Doctor Who.
Great one.
Because
Meadow
you've got Doctor
has come up
Who.
with both my examples.
You've got Doctor Who, and then there's the humans have got Torchwood, and they're doing stuff to the aliens which Doctor Who wouldn't do either.
Oh, okay.
And things like that.
Yeah,
so
I'm
what I
not
mean by
familiar with Doctor
society
Who, but I
is,
see what you're saying.
is obviously the humans are not always with Doctor Who. For example, you know, Torchwood. I've watched Torchwood as well. It's good, but I think they weren't always in the light of Doctor Who. Torchwood, if you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. Well done, Rodri. Good example. Meadow has given 2 books. Triple extra points to Meadow. Well done. The Hunger Games, 100%. That is just Katniss versus society. That society is horrible, really, really wrong, bad. And Katniss is amazing. Yeah, the Hunger Games, Maze Runner as well. Yeah, definitely society. So you think it's one society at the beginning and then it gets bigger, doesn't it? That's a very, very good example. And not necessarily one person in the Maze Runner. That's a group of kids versus society versus a group of kids. If anyone hasn't read Maze Runner, absolutely recommend it. You've seen that come up in my recommendations time and again. So yeah, go and read those 2. Meadow, top marks. Casper, Mr. Robot. Explain Mr. Robot.
So it's a series on, I think, Amazon. It's a hacker which makes the group, he's delusional. He has his father died, he blames himself for it, and he doesn't, it shows like he's a normal guy, his father is alive, and he doesn't even know he has a sister, like as if he's got dementia. But he's working with these hackers. He finds a place, and then he's trying to fight against like the corporates, like the very the big companies taking money. The first season was when he was trying to help people that were in debt because of so he got rid of all the debts.
Oh, that's very Fight Club, isn't it? Getting rid of all the debt so that everyone starts afresh. That's very Fight Club. Very, very man versus society.
It was student loans, to be precise.
Student loans, yeah, that's exactly
in America.
Fight Club. They blow up a bank so that everyone's debts are erased. The banks don't know who owes what. Yeah, very, very good. I like that example. Excellent. And a background story there. So that's characterization. That's exactly what we've been talking about. We need a good solid character so we can say that's why he does that. That's why he doesn't do that, because the character dictates it. That's why you might see things. So did anybody watch Game of Thrones all the way from beginning to the end? Oh, perfect example though. Yes, Daniel. So
another one I thought of is Captain America.
Oh right, yeah. The Marvel ones are coming up a lot, aren't they?
You know the Marvel Captain America when you got Iron Man that goes on he ends up going on what the human sort of side, right? And Captain America went off because there was that I don't know who the other character is, but he was he's got a power where if a German Nazi says these like things in German, he becomes evil. And Captain America knew that he wasn't completely evil, so he was trying to look after him. But then you see what I mean? When it splits.
Tone's not a clear-cut personality. I completely see what you mean. So Tabitha has never watched Game of Thrones. Meadow's never watched Game of Thrones. Traumatized for the last season, Daniel. 100% right. So the whole series was amazing. Daenerys was his character. She was a real goodie, right? All the way through, goody. She was always saving people, always helping people, did whatever in her power to help people. In the last series, she burnt down towns, just burnt down cities with her dragons, killed everybody, goodies, baddies, poor people, peasants, everybody. She killed everybody. And people were going nuts because they were going, that's not what she would do. You know, when you've spent so long, so many books and so many series watching a character and you've got to know that character, when they do something that doesn't fit with that character, it jars. It doesn't sound good to a reader. And everybody hated that. Daniel, traumatized. And you're not traumatized because of the horrible things you witnessed. You're traumatized because of what they did to our characters. So that is very much characterization. What you do to the characters and how you set that character up dictates dictates how they go. You can have a character arc, you can have a goodie become a baddie slowly, you can have a baddie become a goodie slowly, but it's that slowness and what they still say the same person at heart, they still keep the same morals. That's why everyone was really angry about Daenerys, because she completely just switch characters. No one was happy about that. So yeah, that's a good one to remember as well. Characterization. Once you set your character, you've kind of given your character rules then, and that character either needs to follow the rules or needs a good reason why those rules have switched. So let's come up with my examples for character versus society. The Hunger Games, well done Meadow. The Handmaid's Tale and 1984. Does anybody know The Handmaid's Tale and 1984? What sort of society is that against? Handmaid's Tale, again, really popular series at the minute. You might have watched that. Excellent book. If you've read the series and liked it, pick the book up. It's very, very good.
I've never seen the Handmaid's Tale or 1984.
Excellent. Very relative. 1984 is the government, Daniel. 100%. Yeah, 1984 is the government. It's a man versus the government. They're watching him. Big Brother is watching you.
Yeah, the book 1984. I never read it actually, but because I don't have. But I think it's banned in a couple of countries.
100%, absolutely is banned, yeah, because it's very, very seriously man versus society. Man is good, society is bad. And a lot of societies, particularly the ones that control people, don't like you to read that society is bad. And that was a very, very good book, very important book. Not an easy book to read, but it's good.
So, yeah, I know what you mean. People disagree with things. It's like politics, isn't it?
Yes, that one's a very, very political book, as is The Handmaid's Tale, and as is The Hunger Games, kind of. A political book written for young adults. Very, very good. So well done. You've all got the absolute gist of that. Well done. So the protagonist, the main character, may also experience a moral dilemma in which they must choose between right and wrong. These types of conflicts are called external conflicts because it is a conflict with someone or something outside of the protagonist. An internal conflict pits man against himself. Here, the protagonist must decide between two opposite forces, such as choosing between good and evil or logic and emotion. Another type of internal conflict plot might describe the protagonist overcoming something like drug addiction or self-loathing. In longer narratives, such as novels, you might find examples of both external and internal conflicts. So, narrative voice. All stories must be told by someone. Therefore, the narrative voice will always come from a certain perspective or point of view. As we have previously discussed, the most popular types of narrative voice are first and third person. It is key that the author chooses a narrative voice that fits the story he or she is telling. If they want the reader to have an intimate understanding of all the characters or provide a more wide-ranging viewpoint, they are better to choose a third-person narrative. If they want the reader to be immersed in one person's ideas and misconceptions, it's better to choose a first-person narrative. So if we have a look at this one here, and then I'm going to run a quick poll. So this is an extract taken from Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift, and it says, "My father had a small estate in Nottinghamshire. I was the third of 5 sons. He sent me to Emmanuel College in Cambridge at 14 years old, where I resided for 3 years and applied myself close to my studies." So if I put the poll up now for you, you can take a vote on A or B. Do you think that extract shows A, first person, or B, third person narrative? I'm not going to explain what either of those are just yet. This should be revision. Hopefully we've covered this before, but don't worry, after this one, I'll explain what they both are. So is this A, first person, or B, third person? This is something that will come up in your exam and you will need to know. Okay, one more vote to come in. I'll leave that person, give you another second, and then I will show the poll results. Okay, I've shared the results with you now. The absolute vast majority of you said A, first person, and you are right. My father, I was the third, me and I. This is about me. You're inside my head. I am the character. I am telling the story. That's first person. If it was third person, it would be a narrator that's opposite, well, not opposite, but above, outside of the main character. It would be he, she, they, them, whereas first person, me, I, we. Okay, so I hope that makes sense.
I mean, this one's a bit, the way it's worded makes it confusing because well, it's as if I suppose it's first in a way, but you're talking about the father, and it's as if you're going to do a story about the father.
Yeah, but it does still say my father.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but that's where you could get confused.
I suppose,
because you could be talking about your father. You're not talking about yourself, you're talking about someone else.
No, but it's whether you're inside the character's head or not. If you talked about the boy's father or Harry's father, it would be third person, but it's not about who you're talking about. It's whether you're inside the character's head or not, whether that character is saying, I mean.
I know what you mean. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Right, let's try this one then. Let's try the second one and then I'll relaunch the poll. So Mr. Sherlock Holmes, who was usually very late in the mornings, save upon those not infrequent occasions when he was up all night, was seated at the breakfast table. I stood upon the hearthrug and picked up the stick which our visitor had left behind him the night before. So that is from The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I'm going to relaunch the poll. This one is tricky. I have no doubt that people are going to be tripped up by this one, but have a look. Is that first person A or B third person? This one is trickier. I'm sorry, I'm mean for putting this one. Okay, one more vote to come in and then I will share the poll with you. There we go. Thank you very much. Lovely. So again, the absolute vast majority of you picked A, first person. I thought it would be way more split than this because this one's hard. Mr. Sherlock Holmes, he was up all night. He was sitting at the breakfast table, but then I stood up on the hearthrug. I picked up the stick which our visitor had left. It's first person. This one is first person. So the main character might be Sherlock Holmes, and we're not inside Sherlock Holmes's head, but we are inside the narrator's head.
I think I know the difference now, what you're saying. But yeah. The reason why it's tricky is because you're talking about the person, and it's not about you, it's about the person. Yeah. You're still saying I. Yeah. So I suppose that makes it first.
If you don't see I in the character. So a famous example of Harry Potter, Harry woke up, Harry walked down the stairs, Harry was a wizard. We know that one. That one is not first person. Never get I did this, I woke up. You know, it's always Harry did this. This one, it has I, therefore first person. Well done, everybody. I really thought that would trip you all up. Let's have a look at this one. Lovely book, this one. Poor Joe would gladly have gone under the table, as one thing after another was tasted and left. While Amy giggled, Meg looked distressed, Miss Crocker pursed up her lips, and Laurie talked and laughed with all his might to give a cheerful tone to the festive scene. We relaunch the poll. What's this one? A, first person, or B, third person? This one is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I love this book. It's beautiful. Oh, wow. Straight in, everybody. Well done. Oh, you've all done way better than I thought. You're too good for me. Third person. There is no I, me, we. This is all about other people. And the reason for this is Little Women is about 4 girls, and you can't see 4 characters equally if you are within a narrator. So the narrator here is above the people. The narrator is not a character themselves, so we can move with all 4 characters, and the book does move with all 4 characters. So when you're picking first or third person yourself in your writing, which you will be asked to do in the exam, you need to make sure that you are aware of whether you pick first or third and why, which one works best for you. So setting. We have now discussed who, what, why, and how in relation to narrative fiction, but where and when are also very important. Like descriptive writing, providing a detailed and compelling description of the character's surroundings is a key attribute of narrative writing. This will captivate the audience and give the reader a better understanding of what is going on. The setting can also influence the story itself. Where you place your story can also influence the type of conflicts that your story can portray. It's very important that the setting you describe is consistent with the story you tell and the characters that you describe. So let's take a look at some different options for settings and see which best fit the story that we want to tell. So here are our 2 settings, A and B. To practice creating intriguing and well-developed settings, consider the following questions in relation to a piece of narrative fiction. Where is it set? Oh, sorry, have I gone past that one? Where is it set? Oh, sorry, have I gone past that one? Right. Okay, let's deal with this. We're having a, I don't know what I've done. I've had a right, polls. We're doing a poll again, okay? I think I've skipped ahead of myself in my script. What an idiot. Right, so this poll, setting A and setting B. I'm not going to describe them to you yet. Feel free to get your own feelings about these 2 settings. But we're going to write a ghost story, a scary, spooky ghost story. Which of these 2 settings would you pick? Please. and we'll share it afterwards. Oh, it's split. How good. I love this. There is no right and wrong on this one, really. You can do whatever you like when you're writing a story, but which one would be usual? Let me share this with you. Okay, again, all but one of you have said A. Yeah, that one looks like the spooky ghost story. Okay, and absolutely, you could tell a ghost story on a desert island. Of course.
Yeah, I mean, I put A, but you could say B because it doesn't.
Absolutely.
Because you could have a ghost story on the beach. You could have a ghost story anywhere.
Yeah, but which one are you going to have to work very, very, very hard at? If you tell a ghost story on the beach,
would be harder to work.
You are going to have to be a good writer, aren't you, to tell a ghost story? And there is one called Doomakey by Stephen King, which is set on a beach, but he is the absolute king of ghost stories and he can tell them anywhere. So he tells one on this like beautiful, I think it's like the Florida Keys or something, very beautiful, pretty scary, but not as scary as all ghost stories set in the woods, in the dark and the gloom. It's just atmosphere. It just creates the easy atmosphere. So yeah, if you're a very, very good writer, feel free to book the trend, write about whatever you want. But if not, maybe use the setting to help you. You know, a spooky, scary, dark setting, absolutely great for a horror film or horror book. So what about this one? Let me share this poll with you now. This setting pictured, we see a man on a little desert island. He doesn't look very happy. I think he's naked. Is this one A, man versus society, or B, man versus nature? What sort of book would be written about this setting? If this was our setting, what sort of book would we be writing? Oh, wow, straight in there. And everybody, for once, everybody has answered the same thing. Let me share the results with you. All of you are saying man versus nature, 100%. How can the man be against society when there is no society? He is all on his own. He's got a little shark swimming around him. He's not got very much food. This is 100% man versus nature. Like,
and he'd have to fish to eat.
He would, yeah. So the sort of story we're going to have is like his day-to-day survival, him against the weather, the sea, the animals, nothing to do with society, okay? So again, our setting dictates what our story is going to be about. Okay, last one. This is our setting, the one that's in the picture. What is our conflict going to be? Is our conflict going to be A, stolen bread, or B, a stolen car? What is our conflict going to be in a story with this setting? And remember, in a book, your readers are not going to see this picture. You're going to have to describe the picture. You're going to have to describe the setting. And we don't always need to say exactly what the setting looks like. We can just use the plot and the theme to describe that. This one's split. That's interesting. This one is split, but the vast majority of you have gone one way. I'm going to leave it for one more to vote. Is everybody going to have a chance to vote? And then I will share it with you. Okay, so let me share the results with you. That one was split. 2 of you said B, a stolen car, and most of you said stolen bread. I can see why. So again, yeah, there are not cars, but there's carriages in this picture. There's carriages in that time.
It looks as though there's not cars.
No, there wasn't cars
at that time.
There wasn't.
So that's
also,
why I chose stolen bread.
Yeah,
and also, if you mentioned about cars, they would think that it's more modern day.
That is exactly
about
right.
bread, then they would kind of understand, like,
I suppose it's a carriage rather than a car, though, isn't it? A carriage.
Exactly that. It's a carriage. So if you use certain words like stolen bread, nobody steals bread these days, do they? It's just not really a thing that people steal. Stolen bread puts you in the mind of Dickens, doesn't it? Whereas a stolen car puts you in a modern mind. They might have had cars then.
It could be a kid that was a poor family.
You are right. Yeah.
It could be a kid from a poor family that goes to a bakery and robs some bread.
Yeah, again, yeah, it puts you in the mind. So without me telling you where this story was set, you know, don't you? You can see where this story is set because I said that bread was stolen. If I said a stolen car, you might be thinking, much more modern. So here we are. Here is the bit that I was trying to find before. Let me close the poll down. So to practice creating intriguing and well-developed settings, consider the following questions in relation to a piece of narrative fiction. Where is it set? How does this influence the plot? Is the setting important to the characters or the plot? And how is the setting described? Also, when is the story set? Does the period the story is set in influence the narrative? What is described in the story that shows the reader when this story is set? And that is what we've just talked about then, isn't it? Let's look at that last point in some more detail. What is described in the story that shows the reader where the story is set? It's really basic and limiting to start a story with words such as it was Victorian Britain or on a desert island on his own. There's a phrase in writing which says show, not tell. Okay, you want to show the reader what is happening and where it's happening, not tell them, because that's very basic. Like, I think it was Nick that just spoke up then and said, saying the word stolen car makes you think of a certain thing. You're really going to have to fight against that if you want to set it somewhere else. So just work with the settings, work with the words you've got. So let's have a take a look now at how we can show the reader our setting without having to state when or where a book is set. So this is a big old bit of writing. Does anybody want to read these out for me? Because I feel like I read all the quotes to you. And this is a class. This is a lesson. If anybody would like to take the reading over, feel free to. I'm not going to pick on anybody. If anyone would like to, feel free. Or I'll take a drink before I read it.
You should pick on someone.
Oh, that's not nice. And you've just made yourself the first target, Rodri.
Now, do you want me to do it?
No, I can do it if you want to, but I would love if you did. That would be great. Really good at practice.
I'll just do it. I'll do it. I'll give you a rest this once. Okay. The public houses with gas lights burning inside were already open. By degrees, other shops began to be unclosed, and a few scattered people were met with. Then came straggling groups of labourers going to their work, then men and women with fish baskets on their heads, donkey carts laden with vegetables, chase carts filled with livestock or whole carcasses of meat, milk, women with pails, an unbroken concourse of people trudging out with various supplies to the eastern suburbs of the town. As they approached the city, the noise and the traffic gradually increased. When they treaded the streets between Shoreditch and Smithfield, it had swelled into a war of sound and bustle.
Well done. Good reading, Rodri. Thank you very much. That was lovely. You did give me a break. So this story has not said when it is set or where it is set. What it's done instead is just describe as if the person was standing right there. What do we get from this? Put it in the chat box if you don't want to speak, but tell me what your thoughts are. When was this set? Where is it set? What time of day? What time in history? What is happening? Olden days, Nick. Olden times, Tabitha, straight in there. Yeah, absolutely. What words can we pick on to show the setting? Victorian. Midday, Nick. Interesting. Midday. Well done. So what about the public houses with gas lights burning inside were already open? Yeah, it could show midday, it could show early in the morning. Chase carts, yeah, chaise carts, chaise carts. I don't even know how to say that, Meadow, but yeah, that's exactly one of the words that sets it. If it said cars, it would set it immediately in our minds more modern, wouldn't it? Well done, yeah, good picking up on that. Donkey carts, yeah, just don't really get donkey carts now. That really does set its tone, doesn't it? I'll tell you where this book is from in a minute, and none of you are going to be surprised. But whereabouts in the world do you think this is set in? England, yeah. Yeah, it does say Shoreditch and Smithfield, but it doesn't need to say we are in Shoreditch, we are in Smithfield, this is London. It doesn't need to say that because it just says between Shoreditch and Smithfield. So everyone
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I know that is because I work National Express and I used to work for the coach section.
Oh.
So some people, if people hear a younger generation, then sometimes they may, I'm sure some people may have heard, but not everyone would hear,
yeah,
you know, would know every, you
no,
know.
absolutely. But what you can do is you can Google something like that, can't you? And you can go, this book's about London, but without the author having to say this is set in London in the Victorian ages. We've all got that, haven't we? We've all got London, we've all got Victorian. Okay, so what's happening here? Is it a quiet countryside thing? Is it the middle of a city? Is it busy? Is it early morning, work time? Is it middle of the night? When is this set? Without it having to say. What did everyone pick up on? Busy, Tabitha, absolutely busy. Yeah. Nighttime, Rodri. Yeah, I kind of get the feeling that it's very early in the morning or it's very late at night. Maybe people are starting to go to work. It's swelled into a roar, so that sounds like it's becoming bigger, doesn't it? So yeah, maybe in the morning, maybe a midday.
During the day, you wouldn't need gas lights, put it that way.
No, but it could be very early in the morning then, couldn't it, in the winter? Because
it could be early in the morning, yeah.
Yeah. The straggling of labourers going to their work. So yeah, it could be in the morning, couldn't it? Yeah, so things like that give us the clues without the author having to say it's a busy
It could
city
be
in the morning.
4, 5 in the
Yeah,
morning.
yeah. And then Tabitha, busy. Well done for picking up on busy. So it's busy because of what it's explaining, but also, can you see my mouse on this? Can everyone see my mouse? Can you see my mouse, or can
Yeah,
you?
I can see your mouse.
Oh, brilliant. So here we've got a comma here, and then we've got, good, you can, good job. We've got semicolon, semicolon, semicolon. These sentences don't stop. They carry on, okay? And what that does is that says busyness to us. You're rushing through the sentence, you're carrying on going. There's never an end. It keeps on going. That is what we talked about before with the way that we write and the way that our writing can express. Do you remember when we talked about the scary one? Lots of tiny little sentences made it scary. Well, this one, lots of tiny little bits all merged together make it seem really, really busy. So that's
When I read it, I was thinking, is it all correct grammar?
Yes, exactly.
I was reading it and I thought, hang on,
It's not how you would usually write, but it's not how you usually write. But, and I think if you wrote this on Word, you would have a big red squiggle, but it does solve the purpose, doesn't it, of making it seem really busy. So let's find out who this was and where it was from. That's Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. So well done, everyone, picking up exactly right on the time and the era and what was going on. Well done. Next one. Who wants to read this one? Rodri did such a good job. Does anyone like to give us a read of this one? This is a good book. This is a really good book. I won't pick on anyone. I'll do it myself. No takers. Okay, I'll read this one for you. With the first grey light, he rose and left the boys sleeping and walked out to the road and squatted and studied the country to the south. Barren, silent, godless. He thought the month was October, but he wasn't sure. He hadn't kept a calendar for years. They were moving south. There'd be no surviving another winter here. So what do we get from that book? The setting, whereabouts in the world is it? Whereabouts in time is it? What's happening? Cold, Nick, absolutely. Sounds freezing, doesn't it? There'd be no surviving another winter here. What kind of book does that give you the impression? This is the opening, by the way. This is one of the opening paragraphs. Old times, Tabitha. What makes you think old times? What words make you think of old times? And there's no right or wrong here because this book does have a bit of a slow twist and turn. So when you start reading this, you don't get the impression of what's actually happening. There are some clues, though. Can anyone pick up on the clues? Whereabouts in the world do you think this is?
I don't know where in the world it is, but it does say there'd be no surviving another winter here.
Yeah.
It almost seems as like these days, like, you know, even in the country, you've got houses everywhere. You've got, you know, a lot. So I can see why someone said old times, because if you read there'd be no surviving another winter here, it sounds as though there was less houses, there was less this, less that.
So in the olden days, quite often people wouldn't survive a cold winter, would they? They'd run out of food, they'd be too cold.
No.
Yeah, quite often. Nick has said in the comments as well, Antarctica. I get why you say that because it is freezing, although they do say we need to move south. And moving south in Antarctica doesn't get you any warmer, does it? So dystopian or another world. Meadow is on fire today. Well done, Meadow. Absolutely dystopian world. That is what this is. The clue here is he thought the month was October, but he wasn't sure. He hadn't kept a calendar for years. Yeah. So this is North America. So obviously they're in the north. It's too cold. They need to keep moving south. It's taken them years because they're on foot. The world has absolutely gone to hell. That's why it's barren, silent, godless. You don't really know what happened in this.
It sounds like it's early morning, this one, definitely.
Very much, yeah, with the first
grey light.
Yep. So
and that's like when the light's firstly coming up. That's what it sounds like.
So we know when in the day this is. We know where in the world it is. We know when in life it is. It's a future dystopian future. Who is the boy?
Did someone say it's an alien planet then? That's basically what it was.
Could be. Absolutely could be. So when you're reading at this point, you've got no idea, do you? No heating, Tabitha. Yeah, no heating, absolutely. So that could be an olden days thing, but actually the no heating is because it's dystopian and the world has gone to hell and there's no heating anymore. There's no houses, there's nothing. Kind of like a zombie thing, but without the zombies. It's just the world's gone to nuts. So yeah, well done. So the boy could be anyone. The boy is never given a name all the way through, but it's I'm pretty sure the boy is his son, but the boy's never given a name, maybe because, like they say, it's been years. He's not sure what month it is. He doesn't know. He's had winter after winter of this. So yeah, everything in his head is kind of gone, and we're inside his messed up, muddled head. Really good book.
I'll have to remember that word, dystopian, because
So dystopian.
I had to Google that just now to see what it was.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so a utopian novel is when it's a world that we know, but everything is amazing. And a dystopian novel is a world that we know where everything is absolutely...
Yeah, I don't know, we may have covered it, but I'm just having another look.
Yeah, so it's not so much...
Imagined state or society, it says.
That's it, yeah. So a really, really bad, horrible society, but kind of one set in a world that we know. So something like Hunger Games or... The Handmaid's Tale would be that, because it's not like there's aliens or magic. It's not fantasy. It's just dystopian. Zombie novels would be dystopian. This is definitely dystopian. It could be another world as well. It could be another world. And that's what I mean by you slowly in this book have to find out what's going on. It's a very slow book. So this is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. It is a good book and I would recommend everybody read it, but it's a tough read. It's a really, really tough book. There's no speech marks. There's no usual syntax of speaking. It's really difficult, and also the things that it covers are really, really difficult. So yeah, I recommend that one if you fancy it, but it's a difficult one. So what have we learned in this lesson? We've learned that narrative fiction primarily tells a story, that characters, plot and setting are key attributes of narrative fiction, that plot needs conflicts and events to propel them forwards, and that the characters, plot and setting of a story must be well developed and described in detail so that they are convincing and authentic for the reader. Thank you very much for coming to another lesson. You've all been wonderful. Thank you for joining in, and I will stop the recording now so that we can have a chat, and I'll stop sharing my screen with you. Thank you, everybody.